Hey there, welcome to the weekend edition of The Forum. The weekend edition enables me to address the comments from the Weekday Show and actually have a dialogue with you, the viewers. Before we get into the comments, I'd like to thank all of you that watched my first show and didn't immediately turn it off. It was really rough around the edges, but I really think that we can turn it into something that's, good and easy to watch. With that said, let's get into the comments from last video. The first one comes from Shelley Snowton, who said, "Yes, Ford's campaign feels Trump-esque. He, or his handlers, hired paid actors to be supporters." Now, this is a story that I was going to save for the Weekday Show when I actually talk about the news, but since I have time here, let's address it, shall we? On Monday, the political leaders in Ontario had a debate, and it was before this debate that dozens of noisy Ford supporters decked out in t-shirts with signs were seen outside the City TV studios. The crowd that rallied outside City TV studios shouted their support for Ford and the Toronto Centre candidate, Meredith Cartwright. And it came out later that those supporters were actually paid actors. One actor actually forwarded a copy of the casting call to CBC News. It asks for 20 actors, each to be paid $75, to, quote, "play real people at a Ford Nation rally from 2 to 8 p.m. Eastern Time." At a Tuesday morning news conference, so the next day after the debate, Ford was asked about the move to hire the actors. Ford did not confirm the presence of actors. He even told reporters that this was the first he'd ever heard of it. However, his spokesperson, Melissa Lantsman, said in an email that the local candidate had actually hired the actors from a casting agency. Lantsman called the decision, quote, "unnecessary and a mistake," and said that, quote, "it will not happen again." Now, Lantsman did not confirm that Cartwright was behind the move to hire the actor, but Ford told reporters he would speak with Cartwright about the matter. Quote from Ford, "We don't need to pay anyone. When we have events, we're packed. We don't need that." Now, I personally agree with Shelley that there is a similarity that can be found between Ford's campaign and the campaign that we saw Trump undertake in 2015. If you can remember back to 2015, in the heat of Trump's campaign, a casting call was actually put out to actors in the local area of one of his rallies. The major difference that I see between these events and these politicians in general is the progressive conservatives here in Canada seem to be a lot more transparent than the Republicans in the United States. The fact that Ford would even offer to comment about the hiring of actors, whether or not he hired them himself, shows this transparency that the Republicans and President Trump don't have, in my opinion. As far as the campaign was considered back in 2015, Trump only focused on things that would be seen as positive to his campaign, not addressing things that could be misconstrued or misinterpreted, such as hiring actors. Ford, however, seems to be okay facing uncomfortable news such as this. And our next comment comes from Will McIntyre, who writes, "I don't think that a lot of people have the forethought to protect their houses from a flood, especially not for $1,500. Personally, I think that there is logistically too many implications with that method for it to become popular." And I'd have to say, after doing some further research into flood protection systems and the people living in those areas themselves, I'd have to agree with Will, but I'll agree with an asterisk. This past week, I've had a conversation with a friend of mine who lives in Quispamsis, one of the areas really badly affected by the flood in New Brunswick. And from our conversation, I learned that while flood season is semi-predictable, it's in the protection that everything gets a little complicated. My friend told me that you can put sandbags out ahead of time, but that's still not going to stop your basement from being flooded. And so I come to the conclusion that the residents living in flood-prone areas do have the forethought to put out a protection system, but that it's actually the protection system used that is the problem. And this is where I think innovation should play a big role. Now, I'm not an economist, so I can't make any accurate predictions in any way as to why companies would want to invest in flood protection systems or what the end cost for consumers would be. But what I do know is that there has to be a better answer than sticking sandbags in the ground and hoping for the best. And that's where I'm going to end today's show. But before I do, since it's Mother's Day today, I want to give a shout out to my own mother. Mom, it's been this past year living away from you that I've truly realized how good you are and how lucky I am to be your son. You are an inspiration to me, and I think everyone that you come in contact with. And well, that's today's show. Thank you for watching and getting through all that mushy stuff. And hopefully this does come out on Sunday. This is when I'm recording it, at least. It's been one hell of a weekend, to say the least. And as far as the weekday show goes, I'm going to aim to get it out tomorrow or Tuesday. But it may be pushed to Wednesday if all else fails. And I'd like to say thank you for tuning in and watching the whole video. If you like what you see, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.